So I wanted to. There's like a million videos out on Toyota 4Runners or different vehicles on upper control arm. So this is a front. Right. This is from the factory service manual, SA59, and this is what I'm looking at right now. Right here is my bushings are 18 years old. They're not sloppy bad, but they're pretty bad. They're cracked up, and there's a couple of splits in them, and so it's time to do them. And so I pulled. I'm assuming that if you're going to get to this point, you are able to follow the instructions and get this A-arm off here. So that's a lot of fun. Anyways, so I've seen a lot of different ways to do this, and I looked at the factory service manual, and step number 1 is using a chisel and a hammer, pry up the flange of the bushing. And then I was kind of confused by that, and then it shows how they actually use a press to get it off, and honestly, I wouldn't have thought of this myself. Maybe eventually, but it would have taken me a long time. And part of the thing that makes these bushings frustrating, right, is that the flange side would be the side you would press them in, but to press them out, how do you do that? And so a lot of people will heat these up if they're going to. So and also I need to back up just a little bit. If you're going to use some other kind of aftermarket bushing, a lot of times they assume that you're going to save this metal housing right here, and I'm also and I don't have one in my hand right this second. I'm assuming that the replacement bushings that come from Toyota are this entire part, so you have to get rid of the metal part. I believe energy suspension is the other popular person, and I like energy suspension. Actually, I have some of their bushings, the steering rack too. I'm not a huge fan of poly bushings. They're really hard. They're much more harsh, but I have run them in the past. I don't know if I'm going to actually use these ones or not. These are for the front sway bar. I don't know. I'm still on the fence about it. Anyways, let's back on task, Andy. So what's difficult about it is how do you press these out? You can't really put this in a press, right? Because you can't really get something. I mean, you could. Like, I've seen a whole bunch of different solutions to the problem, and the most common one that I've seen is you take a bottle jack and you get the bottle jack in between here, and you line it up, and then use a torch and you heat this up, and you then push these out. Well, what happened to me is, you can see that. Hopefully you can see that. This arm that I started to work on and tried the bottle jack technique on it, it actually bent the A-arm and wrecked it. I was able to put that much pressure on it, and it just wasn't strong enough to pop the bushing out. What finally worked for me was actually looking at the factory service manual, and I'm going to show you how I did that. Hopefully here it'll go pretty smooth. And that understanding that first step is really important. I don't really even think you have to do it. I didn't do it. And what you're gonna do is you need a bearing puller, right? That's I believe what this is known as. And essentially what you're gonna do is there's a gap in between the edge of this tube and this flange, and you're gonna put this interior edge, right? So what they want you to do is they want you to bend this up so that you can get a good mating surface along here. I didn't really need to do it before, and I'm going to set it up and I'll show you how I did it. And what that does is essentially moves this piece. Once you're in between here, it acts as though you were pressing against the inside edge of this and not the outside of the bushing. So then, like the factory service manual shows, right, you can press it with a press. With the internal, you don't have to use a bottle jack. And this way, there's no way, well, I suppose anything's possible, but there should be no way. You're only pressing against the metal tubing, so there's no way you can wreck your A-arm, your control arm, just like I did. So now I'm gonna have to buy a new one. And I won't have to press in new bushings. So, or I can go to a junkyard and find one. But these are off my 2004 4runner, and there's no rust on them, and it's too bad because now it's wrecked. But let me set it up and show you how this works. You don't have to heat it up. There's no other tricks, but you do need a couple of tools. This probably would work with threaded rod as well, but I have a press, so I'm going to show you how it works with press. Okay, so here's the setup that I'm going to use. So I use my bearing press. Bearing press. I don't know if it's called a bearing cup remover or what. You can see, right? These bushings have a little bit of a space in between there, and that's how they're supposed to be, because the measurement of where this arm fits back into your truck is critical in the mounting point. So this is how they should look. They should have a little bit of a space in them from all the ones that I've seen. And so what I did is I just wedged that in there, and I tightened these guys down by hand. You want a pretty good grab on this. And then I'm going to use a, sorry, one hand filming. I'm going to use a 24 millimeter, and then I'm going to use a big press tube, which is, I don't know, some weird number, but pretty good size. And I'll show you that you can use a lot of different, probably just about anything. The only important thing is that, let's move this guy out, is that we're only going to contact, wait, that guy over. So this guy is only going to contact the outside. Let's see if I can balance this guy and not destroy the world. Okay. And then this guy is big enough to go around the entire thing, but it's pushing on this surface right here, which really isn't connected to this flange. It's connected to the tubing. So essentially you can use your press now to press down in this direction, and it will press up. So let me set up the press, and we're going to do it. And every time I press these these kind of things out before, the press loads up and then things explode and come apart, and it's really fun. So let me put it on a tripod, and we'll watch that happen. Okay, so before things explode on us, I have it set up just like I said. It's a 24 millimeter, which just contacts. Let me grab the little bushing actually. Hopefully we can see this. Which just contacts, there's a metal portion that goes around this. So we're not pushing the outside, we're pushing just the inside of the bushing. We have that bearing race, or this bearing puller setup, which is just resting on that tubular edge in between the flange. And then this guy goes all the way around at clearance, right, in a space, or this just filler top right here, and we're going to press down. So essentially it's going to allow us to press without having to press the A-arm in two different directions, and only what I would consider a really clean way to press it out. So just a little bit of a pop. There we go. And there's that. There's that bushing. Now I'll have to get the bush. I think I might use the 27 before. And then this guy. Let's grab them both, and we'll come back over to the bench and we'll take a look at them. Okay, so there you go. That's a really nice, clean method, as explained by the factory service manual. With that first vague step, you don't really have to use a chisel. You might have to, I guess. I don't know. All the ones I've done so far, just the two that I've done so far, have been really slick using this method. Very clean, no heat. and really no danger to wreck your A-arm like the bottle jack did wreck this one. So there you have it. It should be a, I mean, I don't know. You guys, I guess you need the tools to do it. If you don't, you know, bottle jack away and heat. But if you do have a press and a bearing puller and a couple of different sockets and stuff, it's a really nice, clean way to go at it. Hope it helps somebody. Thanks.